Welcome back to Stegosaurus Bulletin, where I find and read to you the funniest and most insane Reddit and news stories that I can find. This episode we'll be looking at the subreddit entitled Parents. Our next Reddit post is by the user Cassie121, entitled Mum Tries to Steal My Pre-Selected Seat. So this happened about 2 years ago, but I just went on a flight recently and was reminded of it. My family had an event that we had to go to that was across the country. A lot of my family, my mum, dad, sister, and several aunts, uncles and cousins, had already flown out the week before, but I had to work and my daughter had preschool. So we stayed behind and were trying to fly separately on the weekend. My aunt had a little girl that she couldn't bring when she went, so she asked that I bring her with me when I and my daughter flew. But my aunt's daughter Grace was almost 2, but she was non-verbal so far. And my daughter Alori was a little over 3. I was 18. Alori was conceived out of assault, and yes, I was crazy to fly with 2 toddlers alone. Since I was flying with 2 toddlers, I wanted to make sure that we had a row to ourselves. I was planning on having Alori in the window, Grace in the middle, and me in the aisle. So I went for the slightly more expensive option of choosing pre-selected seats. We got to be in priority boarding, so we boarded before a lot of other passengers. We had checked our suitcases, so I just had my backpack with all the things I would need. Jacket, food, toys, my electronics, and a diaper bag. So, I had Grace strapped to my front, my backpack on my back, the diapers bag in one hand, and Alori's hand in my other. I was saddled up. I got on the plane with no fuss from the girls, but when I got to our designated seats, yep, you guessed it, an entitled mom and her son, probably about 6 or 7, were sitting in our row. So our conversation went a little like this. Excuse me, these are our seats.
I'm sorry, honey, but it's open seating and I got here first. You can go find another seat.
No, this is my row. I pre-selected it online and paid extra for it. I showed her my ticket.
Honey, that's not how it works on this airline. And unaccompanied minors need to fly next to the flight attendants anyways.
Me, getting exasperated and exhausted, still holding a baby and a backpack. I'm an adult, and this is my daughter. Please move, or I will need to get the flight attendant.
Go ahead, she will tell you the same thing.
So of course, I go get a flight attendant and explain the situation and show her my ticket. Enter flight attendant.
Ma'am, she did in fact pre-select this row, so I'm gonna need you to move to another seat.
Excuse me?
She looks genuinely shocked.
Please move to another seat. We have plenty.
Gestures to the back where there are literally still whole rows available.
No, we got here first and my son needs to be over the wing.
Flight attendant looks slightly annoyed at this but keeps her customer service voice.
Why don't I help you find another seat? I'm sure your son will be fine.
No, I'm staying in this seat because I got here first.
At this point, Alori was getting angsty, standing in one place, and the flight attendant noticed.
Sweetie, why don't you take a seat right over there while I sort this out? I'll bring you an apple juice in a little bit.
Alori sat down in a seat on the other side of the row, the one empty seat in the aisle of the plane that was filling up.
We're going to have to remove you from the aircraft if you don't move to another seat.
Entitled mother finally gets up at this point and drags her child behind her, pushing past us, saying angrily at me and the girls.
You teenagers are so entitled.
Flight attendant apologizes to me and helps me settle the girls and my things in our row.
Wonderful job dealing, by the way. You seem like a very responsible big sister.
Actually, the older one is my daughter, younger is my cousin. The flight attendant smiles.
Then you are a very good mother, and I will get you an apple juice for the kids. Just make sure you stow it before we take off. Let me know if there's anything else I can do for you.
Thanks for the story, OP, and you handled that well. And also, did I accidentally give Nurse Joy a job as a flight attendant? Our next post is by the user Crack Elf, entitled Mother and Service Dog Fiasco, complete with fake fainting. Hi, I'm Crack Elf, and I have a service dog for my seizures. Before I recount the tale of this humanoid embodiment of a wet fart, I need to say a handful of things about service dogs. In the US, there is no legit or legal certification or registration for service dogs. There is no paperwork or certificate. There is no set harness or vest that make a service dog real. And service dogs aren't even required to wear anything identifying them. For a dog to be a service dog, you must be disabled, and the dog must be trained to do work to help with the disability. Snuggling, or he makes me feel better by being around, do not count. And the dog must not have any kind of bite record. The dog also has to be trained to handle being in public. I went to a mall with my service dog and ended up going into a home decor shop. She was wearing a Harry Potter themed vest, Slytherin pattern fabric, but was marked clearly as a service dog. She was sitting in a close hill. I suddenly hear a loud, angry, excitable barking, and it sounded like it was coming from a big dog. My service dog had been attacked before, so I was kind of freaked already. I was looking to see if there was a second exit to the shop when I saw the older woman, entitled mother, with her severely obese, hyperactive Labrador and wildly overstimulated child in tow. The lab was pulling at the end of his flexi lead, barking his head off, and it looked like his tiny red vest was either going to snap or cut through his fat rolls. She had the flexi lead attached to his vest, and he wasn't wearing a collar. We're in a weird sort of standoff where I look like I'm one minor inconvenience away from a heart attack, and she's smirking, letting her dog bark, pull, and fling saliva everywhere. The thing was acting like a Cujo, bird dog edition. Entitled mother gets her son's attention by snapping a few times, and then pointing at my dog and says, as loud as she possibly can,
See? That's a fake support dog. The real ones are always retrievers.
I wasn't really sure what to say to that, because she's wrong and her service dog is currently running in place at the end of its lead because it can't get any traction on the floor. I couldn't get past her because the little corridor to the exit was narrow enough for Cujo 2.0 to get a hold of my service dog. I settled on, move, I can't get past your dog. She immediately starts getting angry and claiming that my wolf hybrid, husky, but okay, is actually vicious and her dog only wants to play. I just sort of told her to move again. She started yelling for an employee, claiming she felt she was in danger and they needed to kick me out with my fake service dog. Because said dog, who was standing directly beside me, completely silent, was a direct threat to her psychotic lab. An employee who looks as if he gave up on happiness at the ripe age of 15. God, dude, I'm sorry you have to deal with this kind of person regularly. Comes over and glances at me, then turns his attention to entitled mother. The conversation followed. Employee, your dog's barking and not under control. Please leave. You can come back without him. Legal to request and enforce if the dog is acting like that.
Excuse me, are you trying to deny me service because my son has an autism support dog?
Said over the dog, barking itself hoarse. According to the Americans with Disabilities Act, employees can ask people with disruptive or aggressive dogs to leave. You can still return without him.
My son needs this dog. He can't leave the house without this dog.
Whips out her phone, starting to dial 911. Me, still looking for a way to get out of the store. Entitled mother on the phone with a 911 dispatcher, crying, screaming about her son is being discriminated against because he has a service dog. Getting more and more frustrated because the dispatcher is taking maybe a second too long. She demands that the dispatcher sends EMs and police. The son starting to cry because loud and angry mom is probably terrifying for him. There is a short lull where the dog suddenly stops barking, sniffs the ground and starts circling. He then pops a squat right at the Pottery Barn entryway and drops an almost liquid turd so foul that it could curl a lumberjack's eyelashes. The employee sighs and tells her again to just leave, but not to come back. She resumes screaming,
I zone out of reality and into the Wii Sports thing because I'm trapped in the store, not only by a possibly aggressive dog, but also by a river of molten dog crap spread out in the entryway. Police and EMs arrive. They start asking the three of us some questions. Employee and I are understandably losing the will to live, and entitled mother is screaming and gesturing wildly, yanking her crying kid's arm around in the process. The cops turn to the employee and says, "Which dog made that mess?" The employee tells him the truth. It was entitled mother's dog. Entitled mother starts screaming about, "This is discrimination against my autistic son." The cop asks what task the dog performs, legal, and she says, "Emotional support." The cop of course tells her to leave because ESAs don't have public access rights. Entitled mother interrupts the cop and says that the dog's actually for my fainting episodes and he barks when I'm going to faint. Dog resumes barking and she dramatically faints. Red, she said, "I'm fainting," and lowers herself to the ground, guarding her face, and then goes limp when she's on the floor. Everything is quiet for a moment until the cop says, "Ma'am." And she yells, "Get the EMTs! I fainted! I'm injured!" I have fully left this plane of existence and now I am watching in third person. EMs trundle over with a stretcher, which she limply rolls onto, making those weird fatigued southern bell noises. Dog resumes barking. Son resumes crying. The EMTs ask who is going to take the dog, because they all refusing to transport a possibly aggressive animal. Entitled mother resumes screaming about discrimination. Entitled mother caves after they tell her she will not be going to the hospital until someone else takes the dog. Entitled mother yells for her husband for 2 minutes straight until he comes up, takes the barking dog, takes the kid, and leaves. Entitled mother is shipped to the hospital, and hopefully the psych ward. A janitor comes to clean up the river of liquid doo-doo in the entryway. Employee goes back to the usual drudgery of working at a pottery barn, and I go home because my batteries are empty. Too long didn't read. Entitled mother with fake service dog calls my seizure alert dog a fake. Her dog is aggressive and craps everywhere. She makes her kid cry. She is asked to leave. She calls 911, gets asked to leave by cops, pretends to faint, and is taken to the hospital. Edit. If I see another well-intentioned but misinformed person rooting for mandatory documentation certification for service dogs, I'm going to leave this plane of reality and take every dog, puppy, wolf, coyote, and dingo with me so no one can enjoy them anymore. Jeez. Wow, what a story. I kind of feel sorry for her husband. Is this a regular occurrence? Does he put up with this every time they go shopping? Or maybe he's just as bad. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Stegosaurus Bulletin. You can like the video if you like, and subscribe for more crazy stories.